We recently conducted some research, and what we did was we looked at over 300 national ad campaigns from Fortune 500 brands, and looked at the success metrics and the goals of those campaigns to see how things were shifting, especially around social media and mobile. And a couple of findings really stood out. There's been a 270% increase in requests from big advertisers for multi-screen campaigns. And that's notable because only a few short years ago, those same clients were asking for mobile specific or laptop desktop specific, or a few were saying we want to advertise on tablets. Now they're much less concerned about which screen, but they want to be on all screens. Some other findings in the research were pretty interesting. For years, the biggest ask that we've had from brands after completing a video was send our traffic to Facebook. And it was always a social media action, like us on Facebook, visit us, tweet, etc., or participate in some promotion on Facebook. That has declined significantly over the past couple of years. I think it's down to about 22%. And for the first time toward the end of 2014, it was no longer a top 5 request of national brands. And that is not because social media is less popular or it's going away. It's actually kind of the opposite. It's become so ubiquitous and so important that those actions are now available without the help of a third party like Facebook. So brands are putting more emphasis on their owned and operated sites where all that social media activity is now happening. And the research bears that out too. We've seen requests for owned and operated site traffic rise to 25%, almost a full quarter. So as brands become publishers, social media is now part of their own bag of tricks and their activities, and they no longer have to have a third party do that for them. Very interesting panel the other day, Digital Hollywood, and we had some great participants there from Complex Media, from CBS Interactive, from Wattpad, which is this amazing platform that actually allows authors of fiction to publish and reach millions of people, and also from Yumi. So a lot of publishers talking about native advertising, and everyone defining it somewhat differently, which isn't surprising. You know, for anyone that's followed it. It's so powerful and yet sort of nebulous for, I think, especially for a lot of brands. And we had some questions from the audience that were asking us to sort of define that. I think overall, my take on native advertising, most of it is display advertising within editorial websites. And for those who don't know, it is sort of an evolution from a standard ad banner to something that looks and feels more like the content, custom fitted to each editorial site and positioned front and center within the content, and yet still noted as advertising specifically. So it is a higher performing, sort of more glamorous unit that is getting a lot of tractions because publishers are better able to monetize it, and brands like being front and center and part of the content. Our prediction for that unit is that it will become more programmatized, it will become more standard, it will become less valuable over time. And yet the idea of it, as was noted on the panel by some of the publishers, is to sort of create more custom, more in-depth advertising, which of course I think benefits everybody. At June Group, a lot of our integrations, a lot of our publishers are not editorial websites. We're very mobile-centric these days, and our biggest and best integrations are within mobile apps. And so we've taken that native idea and brought it to sort of a different place where it's no longer just a display ad in an editorial site. It's really woven into the fabric of the app, and users opt in to experience advertising and generally are rewarded for doing so by having a better experience within that app. A couple of years ago, we made actually quite a difficult decision to focus on mobile applications. And the reason we did that was that our technical team correctly identified that as the area that was going to be the biggest growth audience-wise across the entire internet. 87% of mobile usage is actually mobile applications. So it is the biggest and most influential audience on the internet right now. Getting to access those users, however, is somewhat tricky. We developed a piece of software called an SDK, which enables us to plug right into applications. But what happens is when they integrate it, they actually have to resubmit the application to the App Store. So the world has become a lot more complex if you're trying to aggregate an audience these days. Back in the old days, if it was just a standard website, it was a matter of sending over some JavaScript code and you'd be integrated. These days it takes a lot to have that integration. However, there are a lot of benefits to it. It's direct and unfiltered access to specific user groups. All the registration data from those applications is immediately accessible, and we can gather first-party data from all of the tens of millions of users that we reach, and so our advertisers can understand first exactly where they're running, and secondly exactly who they're reaching and how. Well, that's one of the biggest challenges in this brand new multi-screen environment is how do you track? Because for years, ever since the web started to become a viable advertising medium, it was all cookie based. And now all of a sudden, with all this traffic happening on mobile devices, it's obsolete. So for us, it's a matter of first-party data, and that's what we built into our system a couple of years ago when we really started developing this phase of it. And we simply ask users a specific question. Their age and gender is readily available to us most of the time by registration data, and if not, we can ask that too. So we have over 50 million records of users that have participated in brand advertising through us, and that enables us to bring our clients unfiltered, specific audiences whenever they want it.